All right, hey everybody. Time for another video with me, Hayden. These are slowly but surely getting better. I have an editor who's going to help with this one, so look forward to some fine jump cuts and a lot better than I can do on my own. So thank you to the wonderful editor who's helping us out at this point. So jumping right into it, I want to talk about the 5 great benefits to homeownership that I think are really important. And it's important to call these out before we go into some of the nitty gritty of actually getting a house, because it's really, really hard. It's incredibly competitive. It's hard to do. You got to jump through a bunch of hoops. And so it's important to keep the benefits in mind going into it, because if you don't have a full and proper inventory of what we're fighting for, then it's hard to stay motivated for the entire time, because it does take a while. There's going to be periods where you're feeling down in the dumps, and it's important to know that it will be worth it in the long run because of historical numbers on appreciation and a lot more that I'm going to get into right now. So without any further ado, these are these are 5 great benefits that I think are worth calling out when it comes to owning your own home. Number 1 is you get to pay for your own space. And I think there's something sort of viscerally nice about making a payment every month. And even if just a small portion of it goes to paying down the principal for the property, it's nice to pay for your own space rather than paying somebody else's mortgage, which is something that always bugged me. When I was in my earlier years, I was renting an apartment with a couple of roommates, and it really bugged me that I was paying somebody else's mortgage and helping somebody else accumulate equity in a property that I didn't own but I was still paying for and using. And that's part of the implicit agreement that you make with a landlord, is that I'm paying to use your space and the landlord is going to maintain it. They're going to be in charge of property taxes. They're going to be in charge of water systems, infrastructure, utility maintenance. If something goes down, the hot water heater, the air conditioner, that's the landlord's responsibility. But there is something nice about paying for your own space and that monthly housing payment that you make, knowing that you're accumulating some equity in that deal as well. So that's a smaller one, but I wanted to start with something that's kind of makes sense when you think about it. Is it's nice to pay for your own space and ultimately have a path toward not having to pay for your own space because you will own it outright, other than taxes and homeowners insurance and other things that make it so you still have a monthly payment, but it's a lot less than when you've got that mortgage paid off. So next one is your physical safety. I think this is an underappreciated one when it comes to homeownership, but it's worth calling out, because if you own the property that you live in, that dramatically limits the amount and number and type of people that can get access to your space without your permission. The biggest of which is your landlord. In most states, in every single state, the landlord can give you notice and enter your property, except in very, very rare use cases or very weird edge cases. The majority of the time, the landlord, if they give you 24 hours notice, they can come right into your living space because it's technically their space first. They own the property. And so you have to understand it from a landlord's perspective that they want to be able to check in on their property, and they should have the right to do so because it's their property. But that means that if you don't own your space and you do want to protect yourself and not have anybody coming in and be a total recluse, you want the freedom to do so. It helps a lot when you own your own property. So that's one of the other benefits from a physical safety standpoint, is that you don't need to give permission to a landlord. You're able to protect yourself better. The other one is that you also don't have to let service providers in that you didn't call. You don't have to let the landlord's plumber in. You don't have to let the landlord's electrician in. There's a whole bunch of other benefits like that. In some states, the landlord isn't even required to serve you notice before they come on the property, which is kind of bonkers. And if that's the case in your situation, you want to add that to the lease where they have to give you 24 hours notice. So you can also, if you own the property, another big benefit for physical safety, you can change your property to make it more or less safe because it's your property. If you want to install stronger doors, you don't have to ask for permission. If you want to upgrade your locks, don't have to ask for permission. Don't need to give anybody else a key. Landlord doesn't need to have a key because there is no landlord. You're your own landlord. You're your own property owner. You can upgrade your camera system, and if you want to go crazy, you can build an emergency bunker in your backyard or your basement, or go nuts. It's your property. And of course, do it safely. If you're going to build an emergency bunker, don't just do it crazy but make sure that you're building it structurally sound. And if you want to get the permits, but whatever. On to the next thing. Appreciation. Number 3 on the benefits to homeownership is appreciation. That's because real estate and homes are a scarce, desirable asset. And scarce, desirable assets tend to go up in value. They're not NFTs. They have more use because they provide something that every basic human needs, which is a place to live. The historical appreciation for residential real estate is about 3.8%. And the beauty of that is that if you buy a house today, or you bought a house 10 years ago or 20 years ago, all that appreciation is yours. And if you didn't borrow money, then you're still good for you. So it's a prime example and one of the best ways for people to gain and accumulate wealth in this country, because your asset goes up in value and you don't have to pay taxes on it until you sell it. And even then, sometimes you don't have to pay any taxes on the appreciation, but we'll get into that more in another video. The other one is taxes. Number 4 benefit, taxes. You go, what? I don't, taxes, how is that a benefit? Well, the reality is that the United States tax code, and the tax code in a lot of countries, but we're focusing on the US tax code is generally seen as pretty favorable to real estate ownership, whether that's as a landlord or as a primary household. And the main benefit that you get if you're buying your first home, and most starter homes are going to be able to reap this entire benefit, is that you get to write off and deduct the money that you pay for your interest, which means that if you're paying a $2,000 a month mortgage payment and say $1,200 of that goes to interest, that means right there $14,400 gets deducted from your taxes. Not deducted from your taxes, but you get a write-off from your taxes. So that means if you made $50,000 in a year, but you paid that mortgage every month, as far as the government's concerned, you only have to pay tax on $35,600. Mental math, what up? You only have to pay taxes on a smaller amount, which means that you would then take your marginal tax rate. We'll get into that more later too. Let's say you pay 20% or 15% or 33%. You would take that $14,000, multiply it by your marginal tax rate, and then that becomes your tax savings in addition to the appreciation that you get on your property. We'll go more into capital gains and 1031 exchanges and some of the other things that you can do, cost segregation studies in a later video, but suffice it to say that tax benefits are huge in real estate. So last one is long-term debt. Long-term debt, I think, is really important because most people are buying their primary residences with a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. And without getting too deep into the weeds about how inflation affects money supplies and how the cost of capital changes over time, suffice it to say, and let me give this one example, that if you bought your house in 2002 and today in 2022 you were in year 20 of a 30-year mortgage, let's say you borrowed $360 and you have $361 payments to pay back your loan. That dollar is less valuable and buys fewer things today, which means that the cost in effect of that dollar has gone down. And if you look at an inflation calculator, you'd be able to see that that dollar from 2002 that you have to pay back in 2022 costs you just 61 cents when you're comparing it to what a dollar would buy back in 2002. And that's a bit convoluted. I'll have to go into that more in a subsequent video. But suffice it to say that there's this great term that I like in real estate, which is that you get inflation-assisted debt destruction. And what that means is that the money that you're paying back toward the end of your mortgage doesn't cost you nearly as much or buy nearly as much as the dollars that you borrow early in your mortgage. So there's a lot more to go into. I'm excited to see how this gets edited. I'm going to finish this video so I can get it off to the editor, and we'll get it posted. Many more great things to come, and bye for now. I'm Hayden. Peace.